Hello, Praxis gang. So I also do have my Instagrammers here on live. And I just want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. Every Tuesday, I go live on YouTube and on Instagram. Praxis Speech Sister Tuesdays is back. And I am here to answer any questions that you might have. Now, I will say I come on here with a topic in mind. And if you tuned in the last couple of weeks. Last week, I talked about mindset foundations. If you have not, I poured into that episode. That was a very exciting episode for me. So if you have not listened to that, go ahead and go back and listen to that. And then the week before that, I talked about foundations of change. So, what it takes to really manifest a passing score on the SLP Praxis exam. For those who do not know me, my name is Melanie Evans. I am a certified speech language pathologist and certified mindset abundance coach, and now certified soul purpose coach, y'all. So I have a lot of tools in my belt to not only help you get a passing score on the SLP Praxis exam, but also to help you develop and create your dream career in speech language pathology. So today we are going to talk about the basics. It's going to be a little bit less about mindset and more about the study strategies. I will say, I do talk a lot about mindset and study strategies in my newest freebie. That's going to be that mini course that you can check out on my page and the link in bio. But let's go ahead and get into today's topic. So, if you have not started studying according to your learning style, you are missing a key secret sauce to passing any exam. And I'll tell you how I even started caring about learning styles. I really didn't think much about it. For example, in college, I would just, I don't know, just study. Of course, I used flashcards. Flashcards were helpful. Quizlet was my friend. But then when it came time to get into grad school, I got into grad school and I had a neurocommunicative disorders exam to study for. It was our very first exam. And I even took off of work. I believe I told the story on here before, but I even took off work, y'all. I was working a desk job. I was working as a front desk agent at a hotel at the time. And I took almost a week off to study for this exam. I remember being in the library with my friend Johanna, and we would be studying together. And then it came time for me to take the exam, and I failed. In fact, well, I didn't fail, but I got a C, which y'all know in graduate school, a C is basically failing, unfortunately. And I was so embarrassed and also very disappointed. Of course, y'all know the feeling, disappointed in myself because I'm just like, well, what did I do wrong? And also just disappointed with the outcome because it's not like I didn't try. And so I went to Dr. Valencia Perry, who is still my mentor to this day, and she was a professor at the time in the department. And she said, well, first of all, you need to study according to your learning style. I'm like, huh. So I went and I took the learning style quiz. It's completely free online. And it turns out that I'm a visual learner and an auditory learner. And I didn't really know that about myself. Of course, I knew, okay, well, yeah, flashcards, that makes sense. But to know that I have that hybrid of being visual and auditory learner, mind blown, changed the game. Now, did I take heed to that when it came time to study for the SLP Praxis exam? No, for whatever reason, that wisdom just went out the window and I just kind of read and I don't know. I still did the flashcards, but it wasn't effective. So so go ahead and get that freebie that I did put. Oh my goodness. It typed it in Spanish, y'all. tinyurl.com/praxis learning styles. Just comment materials in the comments and I'll send it to you after this live. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the free resource and I do have a little bit of my background story and where this even come from. So I'm going to skip all of that, but let's talk about the learning styles. So we have visual, we have auditory, we have tactile, kinesthetic, and hybrid. Okay, so let's talk about if you are a visual learner. Visual learners learn best by seeing. You probably get super excited by the colorful graphs. You love those bright colored highlighters and pins and video content. And I will definitely say that personally, I did prefer those professors who had things written on the whiteboard. I know Dr. Perry was really into mind maps. I actually really benefited from that. diagrams, illustrations, pictures, arrows, symbols. All of those things are so fun, exciting for a visual learner, but also necessary because if you work off of photographic memory, then that will be your friend. So, here are some study tips. Tracing and labeling structures on a blank piece of paper using color coded utensils. So, let's just say, for example, the cranial nerves. When it came time for me to study the cranial nerves, I would have let's just say like a picture of the brain, and I would trace over the cranial nerves of the brain and the different parts of the brain as well. I would write down the label for it, and that would be my way of quizzing myself every time. Take considerate time visualizing your diagrams. And of course, the colorful pencils and videos of topics that you learned in class. So, this is where YouTube is your friend. I love YouTube, especially when it comes to learning those difficult subjects. For me, it was difficult. For you, it might not be difficult, but dysphagia and the different uh, swallowing techniques, right? Or even fluency techniques, or what does cluttering even sound like? I haven't heard of anyone cluttering. And so, since I just mentioned heard, now let's talk about the auditory learning style. Love our visual learners out there. And also, just as a side note, stay till the very end of this after my little description, because I talk about other learning materials that I recommend. So stay till the end. All right. Auditory learners learn best by hearing. So, if you are an auditory learner, you probably benefit from creating songs. Check out Singing SLP. I recommend him for anything, but he creates songs to memorize cranial nerves and the big nine areas of speech pathology and so forth. Listening to lectures, listening to audiobooks, recording yourself, going over the topics and playing it back, especially on your commute, will be very beneficial for you. So, if you don't know if you are an auditory learner, then you probably resonate with the following statements. Do you prefer professors who take a lot of time explaining the content? Do you enjoy discussing topics with classmates and colleagues for collaborative learning? Do you learn better by listening to a lecture rather than reading a book? So here are some study tips. Reading out loud. So that was a game changer for me. If I was able to read out loud, and the next point is explain the concepts to yourself as if you were explaining it to a patient or a parent, someone who doesn't have a master's degree in this, uh, that means that you really understand the content. So I will be honest, I did use a mixture of tactile kinesthetic as well, because I like to write it down. I like to write down the concepts and talk it out loud to myself, and then look and study it, do the highlighting. I honestly did the most, but that was my second time taking it. So I wanted to make sure that I really dug deep and took it very seriously. And I have found that my clients who consider themselves kinesthetic and a visual, they benefited well from that as well. So, yes, be sure if you are an auditory learner, talk it out loud to yourself as if you were talking to your friend. I have graduate school students who say, "Oh, I talked to my partner about it," and I'm explaining the concepts to my partner. So, if you have a partner or a study partner, a romantic partner, a parent, talk to them and say, "Does that make sense? Like, do you have any questions about that?" And then the bonus, if they say, "Actually, that does not make sense at all," great, let me show you a diagram. Let me show you. Okay, well, maybe I can show you better than tell you. So you really know if you know the content, if you're able to teach it. And if you feel like you're not confident enough to be like, "Oh, well, let me show you a diagram so I can talk this out with you." If you feel like you're not comfortable with that yet, then that just means that you can take a little bit extra time to understand the content. Okay. Also, mnemonics are memorizing concepts. So there's plenty for the cranial nerves and the muscle groups that you can recognize and consider. Finally, tactile learners. So if you are a tactile kinesthetic learner, you probably learn best by pulling the objects apart, putting them together. You need to participate in the activity and learn how to do it. Lectures might be boring to you, and you probably struggle to retain the information. I know I had a praxis prepper who was like, I actually need to be in the situation to really understand it. And this is also why it's important. Oh, my Alexa wants to tell us about the weather.
And can expect a high of 82 degrees
Amazing.
Fahrenheit and a low of 66 degrees.
It's hot in Oklahoma, y'all. It's 82 degrees tomorrow. But I told her, if you can be proactive rather than reactive, meaning if you can give yourself 3 months to study for the exam, reach out to somebody and ask them if you can shadow at their placement and see if you can at least just watch them do the techniques and the strategies. That would be amazing. Or, for example, if you want to get those plastic diagrams that you would use for patients, that's an excellent way to go about using your tactile and kinesthetic skills. And think of it as a skill, by the way, because we need all learning styles. So some more study tips: drawing your diagrams by hand, doing something physical as you study. So tapping a pencil, pacing, holding a stress ball. Stress balls are really nice for me. As someone who has ADHD, I use stress balls to this day. And building exercise into your study or your study day, your work day. Exercise can really help. You can take those breaks and make sure that you are stretching. Because there's just something about that. By stretching, you're able to clear your mind and retain new concepts easily. Now, I did mention a hybrid, so that is up to you to figure out how you can combine the two. I already gave you some ideas with that. Now, go ahead and check out the study companion, because I have recommended materials and even the learning style benefits. So I'm going to go through them one by one. So the Advanced Review Speech Language Pathology 5th edition, I will be honest, that is the book that I recommend. I had a grad student, she was just like, so would you recommend this book? I'm like, that is the book that I recommend. So it's by Rosemary McKibben. The book comes with detailed images of structures, charts, and practice quizzes. There is the ETS study companion as well. And that's a nice study companion especially if you are fresh started in your praxis journey. It will help you understand just the process of taking the praxis exam as well. And then also you can create your own study guide. They have a study guide in that study companion. You can find that in this free resource. Also, you're able to take practice questions. So I already have an episode on the Praxis Speech Sister podcast about the benefits of practice tests. So I'm not going to hit you all over the head with that statement, but take the practice test. Okay. The medical SLP study guide. Now that is something that would be really cute if I had that. Medical SLPs actually joined this live for a moment. So, hey, thank y'all for joining, because yes, the medical SLP study guide is a resource that my clients introduced to me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish I had this. And it has beautiful diagrams. Excellent for visual learners. If you're an auditory learner, it will definitely be great for you because they have mnemonics in there. Check that out. Okay, practice exams and quizzes. So again, I do recommend taking a practice exam 2 to 3 times, really more if you can swing it, but 2 to 3 times before taking the actual exam. So that way you can get acclimated with the test questions and strategies. FRIPTI has practice test questions. It's $20. You can get 10% off with code Praxis Speech Sister. ETS also has interactive practice tests that I would recommend. FRIPTI has free 5-question practice quiz that you can take. And then if you do get the advanced review book, they have practice quizzes in the back that I highly recommend. That's actually part of the preps flow that I use in my programs. Google and YouTube will also be your friend. So obviously you can look on Google for research articles, websites, images, videos that allow you to learn general concepts. So when I'm going through this, with my clients. And even, for both stumped, because there's always that little concept that might be hard to understand, that might not necessarily be answered in the book, or it's a little bit vague in the book. You can always go on YouTube and find the answer for that. Or I don't know if you've looked at certain practice quizzes or exams, but the rationale doesn't actually tell you the rationale. It just reiterates the answer. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, let's just say, for example, the cranial nerve 10 is the vagus nerve. And then, you get A, B, C, and D, and then you choose C, you get it wrong. And then you look in the back of the book for the rationale. And the rationale is like, yes, cranial nerve 10 is the vagus nerve. And it's like, okay, well, that wasn't very helpful. I would have liked to know a little bit more details. Like, for example, what does it innervate? What does it help? What happens if there's a lesion to that cranial nerve, right? Like, I want to know all of that juicy stuff. So you can go on Google to find that stuff out, or, just do some more research in your book and you may find those answers. Okay, let's keep going. Like I already mentioned, the types of dysarthrias, the aphasias, and you're able to answer a specific question that you may have. Visual auditory learners can definitely benefit from YouTube, as there are countless how-to videos on various treatment and assessment procedures. I speak about general supplies. So you might want to gather general supplies. So I already mentioned highlighters, ink pens, papers. If you are an auditory learner, you might benefit from audio recordings, podcasts, audiobooks. Tactile kinesthetic learners can gather things like stress balls, pencils, and highlighters. I already mentioned that. So, one underrated resource is your graduate school PowerPoint presentations and worksheets. I had an amazing voice professor. So, this is kind of my rule of thumb. If you have a professor who you are just like, chef's kiss, you did exactly what you had to do to prepare us for at least this subject, then you can definitely count on their materials. And so, for me specifically, that was my voice professor. And that was my neurogenic communication disorders. And they both provided amazing diagrams to help me really understand the concepts, and not only just understand, but practice. So, yes, they were worksheets, but they were worksheets, things that I could actually use to study, not just kind of look over and be like, I'm overwhelmed by this, right? So, if you have someone like that, who's able to condense the materials in a way that you're able to easily understand, especially if it's a concept that you are overwhelmed with, then do that. I'm trying to think if there's any other tips that I added in here that I want to expound on. Yeah, and especially if it's a professor who you had great rapport with, because that's another thing. Reach out to them and ask them for help. Most professors are more than willing to help you out. And that is why it is very important to be proactive rather than reactive. So by proactive, I mean, give yourself 3+ months to study. Reactive means, okay, well, I think it's time to start studying for the Praxis exam. So I have like 6 weeks left until I want to take it. So let me like figure out how to take, like, no, because, if this is something that you've been studying for 3 to 6 to even more years, then there's no way that you're going to be able to really just feel comfortable and confident with the concepts in less than a month, in my opinion. Maybe I'm not going to say it hasn't been done, but in my opinion, definitely give yourself that time so that way you can walk in feeling confident. You want to walk in with your head high and your shoulders back. You want to walk in getting pat down, getting pat down by the praxis people at the center, but feeling good about the pat down, feeling prepared for the pat down, already knowing what you're going to do when you sit down. It's like a rehearsal. So if you need some extra one-on-one praxis prep, you can please reach out to me for a free discovery call. I just launched the new Passing the SLP Praxis 12-week program. So we go over mindset prep. So that's trusting your intuition. that is making sure that you can recover from test taking anxiety and giving you the tools and techniques necessary from a certified mindset coach to get over test taking anxiety. We teach you how to manage your time effectively, not only as you're taking the test, but also when you're building effective study habits. And then on top of the mindset, we also help you with the study strategies that are necessary for passing the SLP Praxis exam. So I do take you through the PREPS framework. And that's my signature PREPS framework that took me and so many other praxis preppers over the hurdle of passing the exam. And now we are certified speech language pathologists. So if this is something that you are interested in, please feel free to DM me the word coaching. If you are watching this on listening to this on podcast or watching this on YouTube, I will be sure to put it in the show notes. And also, again, check out my free mini course. Maybe you're not ready to invest in praxis coaching right now, which, by the way, is a combination of tutoring and coaching. So if you are not ready to invest in that right now, go ahead, and I just highly recommend checking out the mini course. The mini course is so fun. I had a lot of fun making the mini course, and that helps you break down your mindset bit by bit using the logical levels of change that I mentioned a couple episodes back. And I also give you a quick overview of study strategies that you can start implementing today. So that way you can walk into the test center your most confident self and walk out with a passing score. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. I definitely did. Reach out to me on Instagram, Praxis Speech Sister, and let me know what other episodes or topics you would be interested in learning about. I'd be more than happy to help you out and answer any questions that you have. All right, until then, see you next week. Bye, fam.